which some part of it had been held before in the arms of the wind. And so the stream raised its vapor into the welcoming arms of the wind, which bore it easily across the desert, letting it fall softly as rain once they reached the other side, many, many miles away, where then the stream became a river. I love that story of transformation, of the fear we feel when we see the transformation before us. The unknowing as we cross the desert, exactly what will happen. But the dimly remembered echo of having been born on the arms of the wind again. People have been asking me as I prepare for sabbatical, will we just stop doing everything that you would typically do while you're gone? Or we shouldn't make any decisions, of course, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. And there's some truth to that. I would, maybe if I came back and you'd install pews, that might be a surprise. A surprise. Not a welcome surprise. But I'm actually not worried that Wes will change in some way while I'm on sabbatical. I would be more worried to imagine that Wes doesn't change in those 3 months, that I come back and everything is precisely, exactly the same. Indeed, I really hope that Wes will change. I hope that you will have discovered some new way of doing things, some new way of being, so that when I come back, you can just teach me how it's done, better or differently. There's been a metaphor that I have used as I plan and think about the sabbatical, a metaphor that, like many metaphors I drew, you can see how beautiful my storyboarding will be. That's sort of the depth of my drawing skills. I've thought about a wheel, and often I'm at the hub of the wheel of Wes. Sorry, the metaphor is the wheel is Wes, right? Yes, okay. And there's no desert, so we don't have to worry about the voice. The wheel is Wes. And I'm often at the hub. Someone will come to me and say, I want to start something, and I'll say, I think I know someone else who wants to start that program. Okay, well, let me get them together. Or I have a concern about something, and they'll come to me, and then I'll try to figure out who can help them with the concern. And so I've thought about what happens to a wheel when you take that hub away. You've got all these connections that go from here to here, and then from here to here, from here to here, and then here to here. And of course, when the hub goes away, you have to have spokes that go long across the circle. Connections that go from one to the other. That's what I can't wait for when I come back. I can't wait to see what new connections have been forged as you have lost that hub and gone straight through and realized you didn't need me so much in the center to have that long spoke across. That's what I've been thinking about as I think about transformation in this community in the coming months. Now, of course, it's tricky in a community like ours. We don't always agree on what transformation might look like. We don't always know exactly which way across the desert we want to go. And that's been true for decades and decades. I check in every once in a while with Ed Erickson, who was the leader here in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement and the Poor People's Campaign, and then also during the Vietnam War. And he actually got out in front of that war, protesting the Vietnam War, long before most folks were in the country, and before most folks were ready in this community, too. And it was a hard time, I think, when he was taking that stand, and so they stayed in relationship and stayed in conversation. We have a history in this community of being able to handle dissent. Being able to stay connected even when our vision of transformation looks different. Around the table, around the chairs. So that makes me think, of course, about transforming the world, that final piece. It has been a hard week for the world, especially here, 45 minutes from Baltimore. So many of us have been glued to the news. I know I have. Watching hour by hour what is happening now. How will my heart break anew? This community, as you heard from Ellen, as she announced during announcements, has been for many months engaging in the Black Lives Matter movement, talking about what that means for us, doing our own work around anti-racism, learning about privilege. And we don't always agree on that in this community. We have people with a range of opinions on where exactly we should fit ourselves in that movement. I have another metaphor for you. It's my third and final, and then I promise I'm done. You know, I probably can't just bring metaphors into daily conversation so much during the next 3 months. Oh, this dinner is like a meal. But I have one more metaphor. It's from an essay written by the Reverend Ruth Mackenzie a number of months ago as she watched the fires burning in Ferguson. The essay is called The Necessity of Discomfort. She starts that essay with an image of a chick hatching. I don't know how many chick hatchers we have here. But it looks so cute, you know, hatching chicks, at least the way we draw it, sort of poking out adorably at Easter time. She talks about what it's really like. In the moments before birth, she writes, the small hatchling has eaten all its food, and its growing body presses against every contour and curve of the shell. There is no more room, there is no more food. The chick hatches because its body is painfully cramped inside the world of the egg, and it is starving. Hatching, she writes, is not graceful. There is wrestling and rolling around, there is crying and crying, there is exhaustion and power naps, there is stumbling and trying to hold the head up while getting feet underneath the body. It is beautiful to behold, but I dare say the chick would not describe it that way. I think the chick would say, hatching is necessity. I read that months and months ago, and the image has stayed with me. The image of the uncomfortable hatching. Mackenzie goes on to talk about the egg we're all living in. The egg of racism and white privilege, as she puts it, this social construct that was made up centuries ago and that we are living out to devastating effect today. We are all in this egg, she writes, this racialized egg. We didn't construct it, we're just in it together. Some to life-stressing, life-threatening disadvantage, and others to life-enhancing advantage. But regardless of where we are positioned in the egg, we are all starving. This pecking and prying, this wrestling and rolling around, this, she writes, is what's necessary. I have held that image of the egg, the chick trying to get out, not looking fluffy and graceful and beautiful, but trying to break free because it is necessary. I held that image as I saw the fires in Ferguson, as I tried to discern how we as a community might respond, how we as a community might learn more, might be activists in the world, how we might respond to the racist structures we see around us. And the image is helpful for me today, it was helpful this week. As I saw Baltimore burning and thought, you know, hatching is not graceful. We do it because it is necessary. Transformation is not always this beautiful butterfly. Sometimes transformation of ourselves, of our community, of the world at large looks just terrible while you're in it. But it is necessary. All these transformations, I think, are connected, these different layers. Our own personal transformations, the ones that we experience most deeply in our souls, they can never just be for us, you know. Ethical culture has, of course, the tagline so many of us repeat to ourselves to guide our actions: elicit the best in others and thereby in ourselves. And the thing I love about that is the mutuality of it. The idea that I can't possibly be at my best unless you are as well, and unless the world is created in such a way to allow for the flourishing of all. That's a big dream. But I'd like to believe it's possible. Or anyway, I'd like to act as though it is. That's enough for me. I think about the mindfulness and the quiet, the hushing and waiting and listening that I plan and hope to do on sabbatical, and I think that cannot just be for me so that I come back super peaceful. It has to be so I come back more able to engage in the world, more able to participate in its transformation, in this community's engagement in that transformation. William Bridges wrote a classic book on transitions a couple of decades ago, I think. He talks about the 3 stages of a transition. He says every transition starts with an ending, the ending of what used to be. I think about that often when I think about change, because frequently we have changes we think of as so positive, a baby being born, a wedding, and we forget about the loss that comes with that change, right? We forget about the end of something else that allowed it to be. So with every transition, we start with an ending. And then every transition, he says, ends with a beginning. The new thing, the chick hatched, the butterfly, or the turtle, still alive, still kicking. The middle, he says, is the neutral zone. We won't know what it is until we're in it. You can't plan that neutral zone. It's the part, perhaps, where the egg gets really tight and uncomfortable, or where you're buried under the compost pile, and everyone thinks you're gone for this world. I've been thinking about that idea, the ending. I think that's what we're in right now with my sabbatical, the ending. And then when I come back in August, we'll have the beginning, right? And then there's that neutral zone, the one you can't plan and you don't understand until you're in it. The work of transformation is not to plan for the new beginning, at least not solely. And it's not really to mourn or to celebrate the ending, not solely. The real work of transformation for us, for our world, is to allow ourselves to be in the neutral zone. To notice when we're in it. To hush, wait, and listen. To stay connected when there are others in it with us. And not to hurry too much toward that new beginning that's on its way. But just to stay there, sure that we are in the middle of yet another transformation. May that be so for you in your lives and for our world.